All right, so here's the AirPod case, and today I'm going to take you step by step on exactly how to make it. Before we get started, I did want to mention a quick note about what to expect in this video and every video moving forward on this channel, and that is mistakes. They're going to happen, I'm going to make them, and I'm sure that somebody else who is watching this video is going to make them while trying to build this project. And it's in the interest of transparency and authenticity, and the reason I'm doing it is because I want to not only give a realistic representation of what it's like to be a leather crafter and make these projects, but I also want to give hope to those who are just starting out, or maybe even you're a seasoned leather crafter and you're still making tiny mistakes. It's going to happen. Keep making your projects, keep finishing your projects, and just try to improve on the next one. I have my template already cut out and ready to go, as well as my leather right here. All right, so the first thing I want to cover is the thickness or the weight of the leather and why I chose it. This is a 3 to 3.5 ounce leather, and I chose it because one, the pattern actually states that the optimal thickness for a leather for this particular pattern is 3 to 3.5 ounce. I don't want the end product to be too bulky. So I wanted it a little bit on the thinner side, but I don't want it to be too thin to where it kind of seems flimsy and won't hold up very well in terms of structure, since you need a little bit of structure to kind of hold the actual shape of the AirPod case. So that is why I chose the 3 to 3.5 ounce. As for the Pueblo style, I really like the texture and the color of the Pueblo style. This is a cognac color, and also it tends to burnish very well, as will any vegetable tan leather. So that's another reason that I also chose the vegetable tan, besides the ability to just use my logo or my stamp to make an impression into the leather. There are some really nice chrome tans out there, but I always prefer to use the vegetable tans. All right, so the first step in any leather project is going to be to mark out your pattern onto the leather. It's my little scratch awl here. These are really cheap. You can get them off of Amazon. You don't need to go to a specialty leather supply store or anything like that. I think it was like $5 or $6 for me. So I'm just going to mark all the way around. Also, little tip, this pattern is cut out of very thick cardstock. So whenever I go and print my pattern over at, say, FedEx, for example, I usually ask them to give it to me on the thickest paper that they have. That way, I only need to cut out my template once, and it just saves me some time and some materials. I don't have to buy anything or get anything additional other than the sheets of paper that the pattern is printed on. So now I have my pattern all kind of printed out here on this leather, outlined on the leather, and now I'll get to cutting it. So next I'm going to take my cutting tools and start cutting out the pattern. Lately I've been using this box knife from Ace Hardware, pretty cheap honestly, and it does really well getting into some of these sharp corners and everything else in patterns. Typically I use a rotary knife to make a lot of my cuts, but I don't want to take the rotary knife into these sharp corners and then cut a little bit too much material, and then I get a little bit too much into the actual pattern itself, or actually just cut into the pattern itself. So sometimes it can be difficult to cut these straight lines that then come out at a 90-degree angle to then stop your knife and get it just right. So I've been using this box cutter to make more precise cuts lately. You don't need to get it all in one pass. I usually like to take a couple, make sure I get all the way through, work my way around the entire thing. Doesn't have to be perfect right now. You can go back in and clean that up. I'm gonna be, you may not be able to see it on camera, but there's a little bit of an indent here. and I'm going to be going through with a hole punch and then cutting straight lines out of that. So there we go. I have most of it cut out. I'm going to punch some holes in here and here, and then all the way around the pattern. Taking a hole punch. This is a little bit too big, but you just take the hole punch and then take your maul and then hammer straight through. Pretty straightforward. Same thing with all of the corners. I have little corner punches that I'll use. So I take this corner punch here, you just line it right up on your corner there, and then again, take your maul, punch through. As I'm cutting out this pattern, that not everything is perfect, right? This looks pretty ugly right here, honestly. I still have a little bit to cut out here. You probably won't be able to see it very well on the camera, but there's this little pocket in here in the pattern that's eventually going to be cut out. It's this part right here, but it's not going to be perfect, and that's totally fine. There's ways of starting your pattern, getting a really good rough idea, and you can even see some of these corner punches here. They're not perfectly round. There's a little bit of a sharpness to them. And honestly, as you're cutting out patterns, I wouldn't get discouraged. Keep going. If you make a mistake and you cut too far in, like I've done here, at this point I've cut a little bit too far in. It's not perfect. Not every project that you're going to do is going to end up perfect. And you just have to keep moving. Just keep chugging along, go through the process, do the best that you can, finish it up. Try to keep everything as tight as you possibly can to the actual pattern. But these sort of things you'll be able to clean up, and I'll show you as I go through sanding and everything else, but you'll be able to clean these things up. And I mean, eventually, when all of this is kind of wrapped up to show the final case, a lot of it won't even be visible. So you'll see this and the end result will look something like this, and you won't even see some of these mistakes in here. So anyone that's starting out, don't beat yourself up when you make patterns that are a little bit rough looking. I promise that you can keep moving through, finish it out, and it's going to turn out a lot better than you expected. It happens to me all the time with all these different patterns. I think I've messed up so horribly bad that I'm not going to be able to recover from it, and then I want to give up. But eventually I work through those emotions, you get through it, and you finish up the project, and it actually turns out way better than you could have expected. And nobody even notices those things, especially when you start showing people. Nobody notices it but you. So again, just a PSA for anybody that's getting started. Just keep working on your skills, and I promise that stuff will come to you eventually. All right, back to the pattern at hand. I actually am going to show some of these punches that I'm going to make that way and kind of follow along, but they're relatively simple. We have our little cutout pieces here. Maybe you'll be able to see this mark a little bit better. So I'm going to take the round end and I'm going to put it right at the end where that circle is. Apologies, I'm left-handed, so you may not be able to see very well, but I'll make a punch right at the end there, and then that'll be easier to then make a straight cut out of here. And then we'll clean it up with a little sandpaper once we're done here. There we go, pretty simple. And then this one's a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna have to get a bigger punch for that. All right, back with the bigger punch. So here we go. This is the same idea. Start at the end of that hole here, and then I'm going to make a punch on through it. So I'll start with this end. There we go. And the idea is to try to make it as straight as possible. Right at the end. There we go. I got my two holes there. And then what we're gonna do next is just take a knife and cut in between these two holes to get our oblong pocket. All right, so I got my knife here. I got ruler butting right up against these two holes. And I would go slow here, have a really sharp knife. Just take a few passes, connecting those pieces. Doesn't need a lot of pressure. And just connect those two dots. Try not to cut outside of the holes, but obviously sometimes it happens. Here we go again. A couple of passes, try not to do too much. There's my hole, and again, I kind of made a little tiny cut right here. I'll hold it up. Made a mistake. Again, it happens. Not going to fret about it too much and just keep on going, sand it out a little bit. All right, going to come in here and make another couple of cuts. This little circle part. There we go. All right, so after a lot of sanding and a lot of burnishing on the inside rim here, this is what I've ended up with. I would prefer to get something with a perfect shape, you know, every single time. High quality is key in this game, so I would probably invest in a tool that would actually get this right on the money, and then I don't even have to do everything by hand, all this sanding and extra work to even get it to this point, which again is not 100% perfect, but it's all about just not beating yourself up, getting it as close as you can, and then make it better the next time. And then eventually you'll get there. All right, so the next step I'm gonna do is I'm going to just sand all the way around. I'm gonna try to get rid of some of these sharp corners here and sand it up and get it prepped for doing some of the edge work. So I'm just gonna get started with that. Looks pretty good on this part. I'm gonna work my way around. My edger here, I'm gonna start taking off the edges. And again, this is perfect after sanding. You wanna do it after that little sanding piece. That's when that edge is raised up a little bit, makes it easier for the edge beveler to grab onto. There we go. Make sure I clean up all the little bits and pieces. There we go. Next step is going to be doing some Tokonole. So I'll apply some Tokonole all the way around, and then we'll start burnishing. All right, so next for the burnishing, I'm gonna use this Grog marker, something I learned from Black Flag Leather Goods. Put a little Tokonole mixture with water in here, and it's really perfect for especially skinnier projects like this. You can go in and just mark it right on. Take your burnishing tool or a piece of canvas cloth, something like that, and then just start burnishing. This Play-Blow burnishes very well. So you can see not even a minute burnishing, it's already got a nice edge going. As soon as you start hearing that clicking, that's what you're going for. And there we go, that's a good first edge there. All right, after burnishing, this is what I've been left with. Got a nice edge here. To finish this off, I usually like to put a little bit of beeswax and just kind of run it along the edge. So I'll do that to seal them off. You can see there's a little bit of wax in there. Canvas cloth, pretty old, but doesn't matter. You just go right through here and just start sealing all those edges. All right, so all that's left is to set the snap. I just have a line 20 snap here in gunmetal, which I think will look really nice with this leather. I'm not going to show it on here, but I do have a short video on setting line 20 and 24 snaps if you want to go check that out. But I'm going to do this off camera since it's a little bit easier with my setup. But that'll be it. You just fold this up here, and then it'll snap together like that. And then that'll be it. Back after setting the snap, everything looks pretty good here. Edges look nice. I think all in all, it turned out pretty well. This is the only part right here I wish I could have done better. But it happens. First time using the pattern, these things are gonna happen like I mentioned before. So, moment of truth. Let's see if it fits. Okay, good so far. A little bit of a loose fit, but that's okay. Then take the snap, push down here. There we go. Looks pretty good.